In this video of Game of Theories, I'll introduce organizational autonomy. Originally anchored in the organizational design literature in the 1960s, organizational autonomy has become a fundamental theoretical construct in management, administration, and leadership. Let's first define organizational autonomy. The autonomy of an organizational unit is defined as the unit's actual collective decision rights or discretion granted by its parent organization over its strategic decisions. Organizational autonomy directly influences the decision-making processes of a unit and its parent unit. It is an important theoretical construct that strongly influences a unit's and an organization's capacities to make decisions with high quality, which then influence organizational behavior. Organizational autonomy is fundamentally different from individual autonomy and inter-organizational autonomy. Individual autonomy refers to individual employees' decision rights and discretion in the workplace. It can be measured by a well-established 9-item scale, such as I'm free to decide how to go about getting my work done. I'm able to decide for myself what my objectives are, and I have some control over the sequencing of my activities in the team. If you watched my earlier video on organizational cooperation, you may find that organizational cooperation and individual autonomy may be competing constructs when they are used to explain team performance. If we want to improve team performance, what should we focus on? Should we focus on organizational cooperation, or should we focus on individual autonomy? It turns out team performance depends on the combination of individual autonomy and the team autonomy. And the optimal combination of individual and team autonomy depends on the level of task interdependence in a team. Here, task interdependence is defined as the degree to which the interaction and coordination of team members are required to complete tasks. Inter-organizational autonomy refers to an organization's relationship with other organizations. The constructs of individual autonomy and inter-organizational autonomy do not include a hierarchical relationship between an organizational unit and its parent unit. By contrast, organizational autonomy focuses on the autonomy given by an organization to its unit. It is a unit-parent relationship at multiple levels of analysis. The unit could be a team, a department, division, subsidiary, and headquarters of an organization. If we consider an organization as a structure to undertake purposeful collective action, then we can understand an organization from how the decision rights are distributed among different units and how much discretion of each unit has when it makes decisions. A unit has organizational autonomy when a parent unit or an organization has the power to grant or change decision rights and discretion a unit has. A unit lacks organizational autonomy if it has no decision rights or discretion. Many researchers measure organizational autonomy by a proportion of collective decisions made at the unit level relative to decisions made by or depending on the parent unit. They measure the degree and the number of collective decisions made by the unit level and by the apparent unit above it. Organizational autonomy is part of organizational design, which is the design of an organizational structure. It is a different construct from individual autonomy, such as autonomy of a department head or a manager. Individual autonomy is the amount of freedom and discretion an individual has in carrying out assigned tasks. Team-level autonomy is the extent to which a team has considerable discretion and freedom in deciding how to carry out tasks. But this does not mean that you can add up each team member's individual autonomy to calculate team level autonomy, because team level autonomy is conceptually and categorically different from individual autonomy. Why do we need organizational autonomy? What are the outcomes of organizational autonomy? Organizational autonomy is associated with 5 types of organizational outcomes. First, unit performance. Second, unit exploration. Third, knowledge flows. Fourth, social and behavioral impacts. And fifth, parent attention. As I've mentioned repeatedly, the relationship between organizational autonomy and unit performance is not straightforward because there is an inherent tension between individual autonomy and organizational autonomy. The relationship may not be linear. Some researchers propose an inverted U relationship between a unit's organizational autonomy and its performance. The second outcome of organizational autonomy is the unit's exploration, which means a unit's ability to explore new ideas, introduce product innovations, to search and adapt in its local context, to improvise or develop new practices, or to access external knowledge and learn proficiently. A consensus in the literature is that there is a positive relationship between organizational autonomy and the unit's ability to be adaptive and explore new ideas. The third outcome of organizational autonomy is how knowledge transfers within the unit, across the unit, and between the unit and the parent unit. Again, the relationship is complicated. Within the unit, as autonomy increases, there will be an increase in learning and knowledge sharing within the unit. However, when a unit has too much organizational autonomy, it has no incentive to share its knowledge with the rest of the organization unless the knowledge sharing brings visible benefits to the unit. Some research suggests a negative relationship between organizational autonomy and knowledge sharing between the unit and the parent unit, especially for tacit and socially complex knowledge. The fourth outcome of organizational autonomy is social and behavioral impacts, including unit employees' morale, motivation, attitudes, or political maneuvering. In general, the relationship is positive. An increase in organizational autonomy has a positive impact on its employees' sense of responsibility and the feeling of accountability. Granting a unit decision rights and discretion increases the unit employees' satisfaction and motivation, and decreases absenteeism or the unit manager's anxiety and departure. But there is an exception. In international acquisitions, greater autonomy can lead to consistently worse attitudinal and behavioral outcomes in the acquired unit. However, as we reduce autonomy, we also observe negative effects of perceived cultural incompatibility on the acquired unit. The fifth outcome of organizational autonomy is how much attention a unit receives from the parent unit. The relationship can go both ways. An increase in the unit's organizational autonomy can either decrease parent attention because it increases the cost of monitoring. An increase in the unit's organizational autonomy can also increase parent unit's attention because parent unit's managers may want to keep the unit's risk-taking under control. There are a lot of inconsistencies of the outcomes of organizational autonomy. The mixed results make it difficult for us to generalize beyond the specific organizations and units studied in research. The lack of consistent findings presents a great opportunity for you to develop a more parsimonious theory to explain the impacts of organizational autonomy. Imagine you are a leader of an organization and you want to change organizational autonomy. How to do it? You can focus on 4 areas. you can change an organization's strategic contingency imperatives, intra-organizational power, organizational bargaining between unit and parent managers, and a parent unit's characteristics. A unit's organizational autonomy is dependent on its position and role in an organization. To change the unit's organizational autonomy, you can change the structure and redefine the role of the unit in the organization. Whether at a team, department, division, or subsidiary level, a unit requires a certain amount of organizational autonomy to make the most effective decisions. The managers in the parent unit are further from the local context. Without the unit's first-hand information, experience, or knowledge, the managers have inadequate information and processes, and as a result, may undermine the performance of the unit if they don't grant the appropriate autonomy to the unit. A unit facing unique conditions should be granted more autonomy to develop the most effective strategy and thereby manage its unique challenges. Leaders need to decide where a unit's organizational autonomy stands between the two extremes of no autonomy and complete autonomy. A low level of autonomy undermines a unit's exploration of new resources, but favors exploitation of existing resources. But high autonomy does the opposite. High autonomy favors a unit's exploration of new resources but undermines organizational efficiency. Ideally, organizations should oscillate between exploration and exploitation. To change the unit's organizational autonomy, you can also focus on its intra-organizational power. You can redesign an organization's structure in a way that reshapes a unit's power play with its parent unit. A unit gains organizational autonomy as it increases its ability to deal with uncertainty and a high centrality in the organization's operation. To do so, you can increase the size of the unit, possess important resources, and gain access to superior information. If you are a leader of the parent unit, to curb the increasing power of a subunit, you can reduce the size of the unit and remove critical resources away from the unit. To change the unit's organization autonomy, you can also focus on bargaining. The unit leader can take initiatives to negotiate with the parent unit. The bargaining and negotiation can make the parent unit's leaders grant more or less autonomy to a unit depending on many factors, such as goal conflicts and risk preferences. The unit leader may ask for organizational autonomy for different reasons. They may do so to maximize self-interest, which may create goal conflicts with the parent unit. The unit leaders may also ask for organizational autonomy because they are risk-seeking, and the parent unit grants more organizational autonomy because it's risk-averse. 3 ways of bargaining and negotiation have been identified. You can exploit your organization's internal inconsistencies or complexities. You can find or create leverage in your unit's leader's role as an interpreter of the local environment. You can also penetrate the parent unit's policymaking processes on procedures, scheduling of tasks, responsibilities, roles, coordination, and resource allocation. These 3 ways can help you protect your unit's autonomy and gain more organizational autonomy. The parent unit's administrative norms also influence organizational autonomy. Those norms include institutional routines of how things should be done. They reside in the minds and actions of the members of the parent unit, thereby influence how much autonomy they grant to the units. For leaders of an organization, there is always tension in trying to reconcile the competing benefits of low and high autonomy to appropriately balance intra-organizational power between the unit and its parent unit, or to accommodate possibly antagonistic autonomy objectives of the unit's and the parent unit's leaders. This is the fundamental reason that many research findings of organizational autonomy are mixed. Here is an example of how to apply the construct of organizational autonomy in empirical research. The title of the paper is The Dynamics of Organizational Autonomy, Oscillations at Automobili Lamborghini. The paper is published in Administrative Science Quarterly in 2022. In this paper, researchers conducted a longitudinal qualitative analysis of Italian supercar manufacturer Automobili Lamborghini since its acquisition by German carmaker Audi AG in 1998. Before its acquisition, the company went bankrupt once, was briefly turned around twice, and ended up being sold 5 times. At the end of 1990s, Lamborghini didn't have funds to develop a completely new car, so it approached Audi, which bought the Italian company. After the acquisition, Lamborghini received a cash injection of 100 million euros for a 5-year plan. It also gained access to the resources of Audi and Volkswagen Group. With its dependence on the parent company, Lamborghini lost its organizational autonomy in new product development processes, procurement, manufacturing, and quality control. Lamborghini had to follow a platform approach that was developed by Audi and share components from the Volkswagen Group suppliers. Later, the Lamborghini products became successful. It regained organizational autonomy. It became the only brand in the Volkswagen Group that was allowed to step out of group platform. The entire article was very informative and well written. I highly recommend you give it a read. In this video, I introduced organizational autonomy. I first provided definitions of organizational autonomy and discussed how it is different from individual autonomy and inter-organizational autonomy. I then introduced 5 outcomes of organizational autonomy and 4 factors that influence organizational autonomy. There are a lot of inconsistent findings in the research on organizational autonomy. The mixed results make it difficult for us to generalize beyond the specific organizational units studied in research. The lack of consistent findings present a great opportunity for you to develop a more parsimonious theory to explain organizational autonomy. If you want to know more about how to build a theoretical framework for your research, I have published a book titled Demystify Theories, a workbook for developing theoretical frameworks of educational leadership research. The link of the book is in the description below.